Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace and welcome back. Now to the very first story. Ghana has made some marginal progress in improving the environment for doing business. That's according to the latest World Bank Ease of Doing Business rankings. The report shows the country moved up by 3 places to 108 out of 190 countries ranked. George Wiafe tells us more.
The report ranked 190 countries on the ease of doing business from June last year to June 2016. It tracked how the regulatory environment has been improved for businesses on 11 basic indicators. That is, starting a business, getting credit, registering property, getting electricity, paying taxes, protecting minority investors, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency. Ghana was given high marks in the area of trading across borders after going up by some 13 places, the biggest jump in a long while, to 167. The country also made some slight improvement in resolving insolvency and getting electricity for businesses. However, the rankings show that Ghana was not doing that well in helping firms start a business, dealing with construction permits, paying taxes, and getting access to credit. On the African continent, Ghana could be ranked as the 10th best place for doing business, coming after countries like Lesotho, Kenya, and Zambia. However, in West Africa, Ghana beat the biggest economy in the region, Nigeria, and its neighbor Ivory Coast as the best place for doing business. Mauritius came on top as the best place in Africa, followed by Rwanda. The rankings follow similar report by the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, which saw Ghana go up by 5 places to 114 out of 138 countries ranked when it comes to the best place for doing business. The Association of Ghana Industries, in its Business Barometer report, also noted that the business environment has witnessed a marginal improvement.
That's quite an impressive performance by Ghana. Meanwhile, manager of the Doing Business project at the World Bank, Ramalu, says the rankings show that Ghana and other African countries are taking steps to improve their business environments.
Over a quarter of the reforms are happening in sub-Saharan Africa, where business regulations are the most complicated on average. So there is a big effort to improve in that continent. And we've seen a lot of improvement in these areas in the past few years. In particular, starting a business is the area with the highest number of reforms, where we had 49 economies that did one reform in this particular area. And there we can see, for instance, 10 years ago, the average time to start a business was over a month or a month and a half, and now it's around 21 days in the world. So there is a big improvement. Also, in, for instance, transferring property, one striking example is Rwanda, where a decade ago it took 370 days, so over a year to transfer property. Now it only takes 12 days. So there is a lot of improvement, and these are the type of areas that we measure in doing business.
Moving on, Finance Minister Seth Terkper has defended government's recent issuance of a dollar-denominated bond in the domestic market as duly in line with government's policy to raise funds to support the economy. Government about 2 weeks ago raised almost $95 million by way of a domestic dollar bond, the first of its kind. This has triggered concerns among some bankers and financial market players who argue government is by this move directly competing with banks for dollars, a situation they say could shoot up the cost of dollar loans. But Mr. Terkper has downplayed the concerns, saying measures are in place to avert any such negative developments.
Interest rates, and therefore where we see the opportunities. The government, in this regard, just like the Treasury bill, the citizens who are holding, funds at less competitive rates, should be able, to get some benefits from it. So we don't see it as, doing anything harmful deliberately, but maintaining the rightful balance, because government will always be, in the markets. Moreover, we did this through the stock exchange, and we did it through the book building approach that we have always been doing. And the primary dealers are all banks. And we're very careful. The primary dealers are banks. And we're careful that we don't want people going to change dollars and then come in and put in pressure on the city. So we said those who qualified and are for correction must have, a bank account. Obviously, there's something to be said for the consumer. If I'm holding a dollar account at very low, risk, and there's an opportunity. So there's some truth, in what was said, that it will lead to a more competitive, forex market. And remember that our domestic bonds have a non-resident element. And even though that CD rates, some of the rates are very high at about 24%. So with the expectation that we have been discussing through growth, that inflation would go down, and the economy would become stronger. It means that if you deflated those 24%, it's nowhere near 6%. You are probably paying 12% or so, on the dollar equivalent.
Now, former Chief Executive of the VRA, Kweku Awotri, has warned the debts government owes power service providers like the West Africa Gas Pipeline Company, WAPCO, could worsen the country's energy situation. Former Chief Executive of the VRA spoke with Joy Business at an evening session with energy experts on the promises made by political parties in the lead up to the December polls.
Government owes the energy sector in excess of $2 billion, a situation which resulted in a cut gas supply by WAPCO. According to the former chief executive of VRA, Kweku Awotri, who spoke with Joy Business at an evening session with energy experts at a forum on the promises made by political parties, the power crisis could return if urgent steps are not taken to settle the debts.
Today, we currently have a generation capacity of almost 3,500 megawatts, if not more. The country is currently using around 2,000 megawatts, and we know that part of the reason for that number is the emergency plans that have come in over the last, say, 6 months. But as I'm sure many of you will attest, we still have large sections of the population suffering doomsday for different reasons. I mean, call it what you want. It's much better than it was a year ago, perhaps, but we're not in a sustainable place. And there are, various reasons for that. But I would argue that the biggest reason is a financial one, because there are so many debts that the state actors owe, VRA, ECG, Gridco. There's easily $2 billion of debts owed by various entities. And if VRA is not paying the Nigerians, WAPCO, they owe them $180 million. If VRA owes Ghana Gas $350 million, how long can that go on for? And I think the real issue is, what is the plan to address that? Because that 180 will become something else if unaddressed. If those debts are not paid for, we will have problems down the line. I mean, one of the reasons why, the Ghana Association of Bankers went to government to cut a deal, VRA owed them $500 million, and it was affecting the banking sector. So they came up with a solution. Now, there's still debts owed to other people, the suppliers, Saharas, the gas suppliers, the fuel suppliers. How are they going to supply us gas or crude oil if we haven't paid our bills? So I would say it's not sustainable if we don't pay our bills.
On his part, the executive director at the Kumasi Institute of Technology and Environment, KITE, Ishmael Ejekumhene, criticized the energy policies proposed by political parties, but believes they could address challenges in the sector only if pursued.
It appears virtually all the parties are scratching the surface of what the fundamental problems are. But the opposition, especially the MPP, appears to have a lot more issues addressed than the ruling government. And if you heard the ruling government in their defense, they are saying that, well, we are doing those things anyway, so we probably don't need to. But what is really standing out is the fact that we don't seem to have really gotten a handle of what we need to do. Either we don't seem to have gotten a handle of it, or we don't seem to have articulated well how we're going to address those issues. So that's something that stood out. The fact that, for example, a major issue like addressing the debt of the utilities, most of the parties were silent. MPP mentioned it briefly, but they didn't elaborate on that. ECG, we all know, is a problematic link in the entire value chain. We don't seem to have any plan for it. And I said for the NDC, probably they didn't say anything about it because as far as they are concerned, the concession is a done deal. I agree, I will subscribe to that because if Parliament has rectified the compacts, I don't see how the government can go back on that. But it is instructive because if you don't deal with what the real problem is, you are unlikely going to be able to solve the problem.
The Citizens' Energy Manifesto is aimed at informing the citizenry about the proposed energy policies as proposed by major political parties in the run-up to the December elections.
You're still on the Marketplace live on Joy News. Now, away from that, operators in the tourism industry can now have something to smile about, as about 1.8 million Ghana cedis of the Tourism Development Fund has been earmarked for private tourism projects. The Tourism Development Fund was established with a 1% levy on the industry services exactly 4 years ago. Now, it is expected to have generated almost 20 million Ghana cedis if not more. The Tourism, Culture, Creative Arts Minister Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare says operators in the sector can now access about 1.8 million Ghana cedis for various private development projects. She spoke to Joy Business at the tourism industry stakeholder engagement on the policy framework for the application of the Tourism Development Fund.
As at now, the only source to the fund is the 1% levy that we collect from patrons of tourism facilities. And so, as we speak right now, that is how we get money into the fund. And out of that, government has authorized us to give 1.8 million Ghana cedis for the development and promotion of tourism. Particularly, this 1.8 million is going to the private sector in respect of tourism. So we are giving the money to them. They are now going to discuss the modalities by which a person can access funding from this 1.8 million cedis. Usually, if you leave it to the industry players, they are able to show you how the money can be disbursed nicely. It's an open forum. We want the disbursement to be as transparent as possible because we need tourism, culture and creative arts to grow, because we know that if we let tourism grow the way it is growing, more jobs will be secured, revenue will be generated, and we'll be able to redistribute wealth.
Now, to explore this further, let's get on the phone lines and speak with the administrator of the fund, Abraham Tete, to tell us about the modalities of how the fund would be disbursed to the various agencies and other related issues. Good afternoon and welcome to the Marketplace, Abraham. Hello, good afternoon, Abraham Tete. Hello. All right, so we're trying to get in touch with the administrator of the Tourism Development Fund, Abraham Tete. The fund is supposed to have gained over 20 million Ghana cedis so far. Now, good afternoon and welcome to Marketplace, Abraham Tete. Hello, good afternoon. Hello. All right, so we're having some difficulties reaching out to Abraham Tete to give some further clarification on how the process for the disbursement of the fund is going to be like, and even tell us how much so far the fund has accrued 4 years after establishment. Abraham Tete, you're welcome to the Marketplace. Hello, good afternoon, welcome to the Marketplace.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, and how are you too?
I'm doing well, yeah.
All right. Now, would you be able to tell us exactly how much the Tourism Development Fund has accrued 4 years after its establishment?
Okay. We are doing in the region of... Hello?
Hello, Mr. Tete? All right, so it looks like we lost Mr. Tete on the phone lines. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll try to re-establish contact with Mr. Tete for more. Thank you very much for staying on the program. Now let's get back to the phone lines and speak with the administrator of the Tourism Development Fund, Mr. Abraham Tete, to give us more insight into how much the fund has accrued and how the disbursement is going to be. Now, good afternoon. Welcome to Marketplace, Mr. Tete.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, I was trying to find out from you how much exactly the fund has accrued since its establishment.
Okay. As of the end of September this year, we have accumulated 26 million, in the region of 26 million Ghana cedis. 26 million?
Ghana
cedis, yes.
Now, considering the important role of tourism, in fact, it's still the fourth major foreign exchange earner to the country, don't you think 1.8 million cedis to business operators to develop the sector is inadequate? Hello? Hello, Mr. Tete? All right, unfortunately, we can continue with Mr. Tete because we're having some challenges with his phone lines. And moving on the marketplace is a bar that is becoming popular in the city of Accra. People from all walks of life throng to this bar to have tea. Yes, you heard right, tea. Today in the business van, we'll be taking you to the first ever tea bar in the capital. It's run by entrepreneur Dedo Azu. Let's have some tidbits.
Dedo owns what is becoming one of Accra's favorite hangouts.
Hey. Hi! See you. That's nice. Nice to see you. Welcome to T-Bar again. You're welcome.
Dedo thinks of herself as a creative person and very entrepreneurial. She knew she'd own a restaurant or something like that, but the T-Bar, that was an accident.
I really love tea and I really love people, but there was a festival that I was supposed to send sunglasses to, because that's what I do originally. I designed sunglasses. So I said to myself, you know what? At a festival, people don't really spend too much money on glasses and all that, but they want something to drink and they want something to eat. So I decided that I would make tea, because I had a cup of tea in my hand. So I went to the festival and it was a big hit. I was so surprised. It was a big hit indeed. So I said, oh, people like it. So I kept doing festivals for about 3 years. Festivals, little shows and all that. And then eventually I got this little space and I decided, why don't we start the first tea bar in Ghana? And that's what we did.
All right, so you get all the details of that story on the Joy Business Van later this evening at 5 p.m. on the Business Live. Remember, the Joy Business Van is sponsored by Busy and EcoBank. Now, moving on, Ghanaians traveling to China, Sudan, Cuba, Seychelles, and Turkey will no longer require a visa to do so in the future. The soon-to-be visa-free country trip is part of an agreement Ghana is making with these countries contained in a document currently before Parliament for consideration. Nationals of the said countries would also enjoy same to Ghana. Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament, Emmanuel Kwesi Bandwa, tells hostess of News Desk Beatrice Edu it would enhance trade activities between Ghana and the countries involved.
For everything that we do on this area, there are both sides, the negative and the positive. So if we look at all sides of it.
So, for instance, let's talk about trade, where it's been a major factor, the reason we are considering these things. And Ghana, we are not producing a lot of things. Aren't we concerned that it would lead to, opening our door so wide that people are importing all sort of things or exporting all sort of things into the country, when from our side, we only send raw materials?
We have rules and regulations in the country, and those rules and regulations will apply. So if the government wants to restrict the importation of something in the country, it has the right so to do. The waiver of visa requirements are in respect of specific particular passports. That is in the case of all the other countries except Turkey. Turkey is only for diplomatic passports. and then Seychelles is for all passports. But for all the other countries, China, Cuba, Sudan, is for holders of diplomatic and service passports. So it's not for all Ghanaians. In the case of Turkey, it's only holders of diplomatic passports.
Okay.
Who have that visa requirement applying to them.
Okay.
And then in the case of
China and the rest?
In the case of Seychelles, it's for all passports.
It's for all passports,
yes.
for Seychelles?
Yes.
And then for China, is also for diplomatic?
For China, Sudan, and Cuba is for diplomatic and service passports.
Why these differences?
Well, that's the agreement that has been entered into with the various countries. In fact, the matter was raised on the floor of the House, particularly in the case of Turkey, where we realized that Ghana has a lot of trading relationship with them, but it's only for diplomatic passports. And the minister made it very clear that it's only an initial arrangement, and then in future, it may be possible to extend the waiver to other passports. So
you're saying that for Seychelles and Turkey, for instance, where it applies to all passports?
No, in the case of Seychelles, it applies to all passports.
All passports. Yes.
Now, finally, on the marketplace, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana is demanding that political parties expressly highlight on the dwindling fortunes of agriculture in the country. Speaking at a program to analyze the manifestos of the two major political parties in Accra, the program's director, Charles Nyaba, revealed that some policies outlined by the governing NDC in their 2012 manifesto on agric were not entirely achieved. He said peasant farmers' assessment reveals some are general and vague, while others were achievable.
We did an analysis from 2013, 2014, and 2015, the GDP growth that we had. And then agriculture contribution to GDP has implication in that. Now, we realized that they were targeting 8% growth per annum. But in our analysis, we realized that in 2013, we had a GDP growth of 7.3. In the 2014, we had GDP growth of 4.0. In 2015, we had GDP growth of 3.9. Now, if you take average of this, we have 4.8% growth within the period. Now, if you look at agriculture per se, agriculture has consistently experienced a decline within the same period. In 2013, we have agriculture growth of 5.3%. In 2014, 5.2%. And then in 2015, agriculture grew at 2.5%. So it means that we rather experience decline in agriculture growth compared to what they said they were going to do. So 4.8% growth means they got 60% achievement. Now, they also promised to lead the economy to single inflation within the period. Now, our analysis also showed that inflation rate remained above single target within the entire period. Now, the further analysis also showed that food inflation has been a bit stable. So it means that when you take a bag of maize in 2012, you were able to buy a bag of fertilizer. In 2015, you need 2 bags of maize to be able to buy 1 bag of fertilizer. So you realize that farmers are actually worse off.
And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. It's been great having you on board and hope to see you again same time tomorrow for more interesting developments in the world of business. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji Riafe. You can stay interactive always by tweeting at Joy Business GH is our handle, and on Facebook, we are on Joy Business. For more business news, don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Let's catch up again tomorrow. Good afternoon.